Everybody, welcome. We have a few announcements before we get started. If you haven't already, please remember to silence your cell phones and put them away so you can be fully present for the talk and meditation. If you must use your phone, please do so outside the meditation hall. We invite you to join Geshe Lobsang Tenzin for our weekly Medicine Buddha practice in person and online at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. Next week, our Tuesday evening public talk at 7 p.m., Geshe Lobsang will speak on verses 4 and 5 of the 8 verses of Training the Mind. On Wednesdays at 7 p.m., the monks conduct evening prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama's long life and other teachers. On Thursdays at 4:30 p.m., the Drepung Loseling monks conduct the Protector Puja for smooth journeys, successive interviews, medical treatments, new business, etc. The intermediate series continues in November with Class 5 on the topic of Vajrasattva meditation, the path of purification and inner transformation. This once-a-month 5-class series is held on the second Saturday of the month through November via Zoom. There will be a Vajrasattva empowerment offered by His Eminence Kansa Rinpoche on the morning of November 8th for those who will be attending the Intermediate Series Class 5. The empowerment will be offered in person as well as online. Those who have received the Vajrasattva empowerment are permitted to join in the weekly Sunday Vajrasattva practice sessions at 9:30 a.m. The monks will offer traditional filling of statues and stupas, followed by a sacred consecration ceremony in person and via our streaming channels on Tuesday, December 9th at 6:30 p.m. We invite you to drop off or ship your statues and stupas used for personal devotion and practice to be filled and consecrated by the monks. We also have a limited selection available in the gift shop. Statue drop-off and shipping receiving deadline is Tuesday, December 2nd. As a reminder, please do not park on the grass along the driveway behind the buildings. If the lot's full, overflow parking can be found at the John Lewis Elementary School, accessed via Skyland Drive. When the school is in session, please do not park along the driveway or at the school lots. Also, do not park in the school lot accessed through the gate next to our property, as the gate will be locked and it will be difficult to get your car out. All information on all events can be found in the lobby and on our website at drepung.org. There's a donation box near the entrance to this building. Your generous support helps us to continue to offer programs and services like this to our online community, to our Atlanta community, and to those around the world through our online platforms. Now, if you would please stand as we invite our teacher, Geshe Lobsang, to come in for this evening's talk. Please have seat.
Good evening. You are doing well? That's wonderful. You may be noticing that I'm a little bit robotic today. I have to move a little bit, not abruptly. I have a little vertigo. It's the crystals that collect in your ear duct. So if I move down, head down quickly or backwards, then it spins. So and it makes you a little feel nauseated. But when you are sitting straight, no problem. Okay. Shall we do with a brief chanting? We can do a brief chanting, but before we do brief chanting, we can do a brief settling also, and then do the chanting for a few times of this mantra of Heart Sutra, 4 immeasurables. And then we will discuss the mind training, the 3rd verse today. So please take a moment to find a comfortable posture. At your adjusting posture, if you notice any tightness in your chest, or the heaviness in the shoulders, or if the neck feels tense, or the back tight, or your around face feels tense, just feel free to stretch a little bit to see if that helps soften some of those tension. Perhaps you can stretch your body, roll your shoulders, or gently stretch your neck to the right and left, perhaps front and back. If that helps soften some of those physical tensions. And then just placing our body in a position that supports our clarity and the stability of the mind. And that position being when we place our back in the fully upright position, just as if our vertebrae are nicely aligned in vertical way, where we just let it settle, just resting nicely in that vertical position. As you just connect with that upright position, see that leads to a subtle shift, inner shift, giving a little boost of energy that makes us more awake and alert. Placing our back in this position, perhaps our breathing becomes a little smoother and easier. While our mind can be alert, awake, at times it can be too scattered, too hyper. So to settle our mind a little bit, if we can bring our attention to our body that is nicely settled on the cushion or in our chair, just bringing attention to that support of cushion, the chair, or the floor, if your feet are nicely, firmly placed on the floor. How that gives your body a stable and still position. Bringing attention to that still and stable position of the body. See that it leads to a corresponding inner shift, an inner sense of groundedness, an inner sense of settledness. So our mind somewhat alert yet settled. Let's bring this attention with this quality to just check in briefly with our body and mind. Just bringing attention to one or two places in your body, perhaps to chest or the shoulders, neck, back. Just bringing your attention there. See what that body landscape, inner landscape, feels like. Is it tense? Or does it feel relaxed or somewhat relaxed? What other sensations do you notice in that part of the body? Do they feel pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? Beyond these physical sensations, as we check in with our inner other experiences, what else is preoccupying our mind right now? Is there an abiding sense of ease or calm, or a little bit of agitation, worry, a feeling of anxiousness, or just excitement and joy? Is our mind getting pulled to certain unresolved issues or certain anticipations? Checking in with our body and mind, in what state they are right now. If we do notice certain tensions in the body, like tightness, heaviness, certain unpleasant, kind of uncomfortable feelings in the body, sensations, or certain inner distress, feeling of anxiousness, worry, feeling down, agitations. We may take a few deep breaths to see if that helps soften some of those tensions as we breathe in, just taking slow yet full in-breath. Just breathing in rejuvenating and nourishing air, rich with life-giving oxygen that keeps us alive, that nourishes each cell in our body. But as we breathe in, along with this oxygen, life-giving oxygen, we may just imagine breathing in the air that is rich with other properties that nourish our body and mind, or those qualities that just we feel at this moment that we need. Letting them infuse with our whole being, nourishing our body and mind. And as we breathe out, just long and full exhalation. With that, releasing, letting go of those tensions in the body and mind that we may have been experiencing. See, with the outgoing breath, you can just feel like letting go, releasing them. And letting the body and mind to settle. Any degree of this unfolding sense of ease and calm that unfolds as we notice any degree of this, we can connecting to this, just rest with that sense of ease. Otherwise, take one or two more of this intentional full in-breath of those nourishing air with the outgoing breath. Just full exhalation. Releasing the remaining tensions in the body and the mind that we may be experiencing. With this intentional, deliberate, mindful in-breath and outgoing breath, in that unfolding sense of ease, if we connect with that to some degree, any degree, Let's here take a moment to reflect that for us to, despite ups and downs in life, to enjoy or to maintain a certain degree of that inner sense of joy, comfort, how this will require, among other things, certainly the material, the external resources are important for certain basic needs. But when it comes to our emotional needs also, the community, those around us that have relationship and so forth are important. And the emotional well-being is important. So for the greater degree of well-being and happiness, we can see that how bringing inner transformation at different various levels are helpful not only for our own well-being, but if we were to be of assistance to other beings with their happiness, with their well-being. So in that sense, let's recite this mantra, the heart mantra of the great wisdom, the essence of wisdom. As the mantra reads, Tatyatha gate gate paragate parasangate buddhi soha. In the sense that it is thus gone, gate gate, paragate, gone beyond, parasangate, gone completely beyond, buddhi soha, to the state of enlightened, awakened, soha, so be it. That is that we can take our body, speech and mind from those unhealthy certain tendencies that we may have, attitude and so forth, to go beyond our narrow attitudes and narrow perspectives. Beyond that, to go beyond even the attitudes and so forth, emotions, states that can take us beyond this samsara. Parasamgati, with the bodhi that can take us to full enlightenment. So in order to transform our body, speech and mind into that fully enlightened state, that this intention to transcend those limiting forces, transcending them, going beyond completely into the fully enlightened state. So let's, as perhaps setting an intention, that is, maybe they're setting an intention to attain such state, not only for our own lasting well-being, but to be able to help all mother sentient beings as well. Tadyatha enkate parasamgate bodhi soha. Tadyatha gate parasamgate bodhi soha. Tadyatha gate Bodhi so Tadya Gate Parangate Parasamgate Bodhi so Tadya Gate Parangate Parasamgate Bodhi so Tadya Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi so Tadya Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi soha. And to give a little bit further boost to this deep resolve or the intention to transcend our, this limiting attitude, emotions, and so forth into the fully awakened state. Just focusing on more immediately in the sense of wanting all others to be happy, to be free from suffering, not be separated from what happiness that they have, and to really seeing the need, the value of equanimity, impartiality. Let's recite this. May all beings have happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred. May all beings have happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred. May all beings have happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred. Thank you. So, the mind training, these few weeks that we are focusing on mind training, training our mind to be altruistic. That is what the mind training, has to do with training our mind to be more other-oriented instead of excessively self-absorbed, the more from self-focus to bringing the focus to others. That is what the altruism means. Like that. Why is that important? Of course, the spiritual traditions, the humanity all along have recognized, and that's why all spiritual traditions talk about compassion, love. But the science is also showing clearly that how this altruistic mindset, other-oriented, attitudes are good for us. They promote well-being. There's overwhelming, the support in the scientific findings that what they call the meaning and purpose. The people, there are two things that really come down to when you look at the quality of life, the well-being, the happiness, people in life. The two factors are very, very clear contributors. One is meaning, having a meaning in life. Other is community, the connection. Overwhelming evidence for the social connectivity, the greater sense of connection that we have. Not on Facebook, just kind of, that maybe, that may not be, like the electronic connectivity has doubled, tripled, quadrupled, since 1980s in the age of social media and like that. But the sense of connection, where we feel belonging, that it has gone down. Loneliness has doubled. Feeling of loneliness. Loneliness has to do with the disconnect, that we don't feel we belong, that we. So electronic, it's that's just not just having kind of friends on Facebook, social media. The connection, the meaningful connection, that where you feel a certain tenderness, certain warmth, towards each other. That's what the connection. That is the heart of the compassion also. Meaning, what the psychologists mean by meaning, having a meaning, purpose and meaning in life. Meaning and purpose, it refers to having certain goals that transcend our narrow self-interest, but rather meaning and purpose is defined by the focus on others. It doesn't mean that we need to neglect ourselves. It just simply means it's not limited to me, but rather what happens to others. Bringing focus. A father or mother, may be intent, about what his or her child is going to, how they're going to grow, what kind of life they're going to have, and to facilitate a better life. That is not doing the, so I'm a great mother. It's focus on, it's transcending personal, narrow focus to someone else's well-being. Research shows that, people who have the more of that other-oriented focus, they are happier. Why is that? Daniel Goleman, one of the leading psychologists whose writings have provided the foundation, not just foundation, guided the whole field today called social emotional learning. That emotional intelligence that you may have heard. Yes? Emotional intelligence. He wrote this book in 1990s, early 90s. That changed the way that how we see today. What are the key ingredients for good life, What used to be thought as IQ, how smart you are, in the kind of intellectual sense, or that's what is the recipe for good life. But more than IQ is the EQ, emotional quotient, that's the emotional intelligence. Our awareness of our emotional experiences and be able to manage them. That is that ability. That is more important than IQ. A person can be very smart, just straight A and land on the great job. But if the emotional, intelligence is not there, then you can be emotionally so distressed, and caught into this emotional issues of the jealousy and anger and the irritation and the worries and fears, and then just that you can't function well. You can land at a great job, but can you maintain it? That's the issue. And that's why that with the emotional intelligence book, that it changed the companies about their hiring, not just looking at the transcript, like the CV to see that, what degrees they have done and what extracurricular activities they have done and like that. But now they look at that when somebody is interviewing, how well emotionally, you are regulated. Because if you are emotionally dysregulated, it can, derail your life. So that's why Daniel Goleman, that the person whose writings, that he wrote then social intelligence. Emotional intelligence, one thing. Social intelligence. We are social beings. We have social brain. We are social beings. We evolved to, thrive in the society of others. No one is an island here, like that. With even the children, the dogs, the puppies, and all, they learn from playing and each other, and like the interacting, like the children learn from the parents and society and others. Whole point of why we have this ability to empathize with others. Why do we even pick up somebody's happiness or sadness just by looking at them, like that? How that evolved. It has to do with, because if we need to live with others, we evolved to pick up others' emotions as they are signaled through the eyes, gaze, facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and like that. Social intelligence. We talk about the social skills. People can be very smart, but they're just poor social skills. It will be very hard to, be in a relationship. Not just with your spouse or the children or the co-workers, clients, and others. Social skill is a very, very important. Social intelligence. Empathy, the compassion. That is the key to that. When it comes to social skill and like that. Daniel Goleman talks about, like how self-absorption, excessive self-absorption, just me, to focus on. It kills empathy, let alone compassion. It kills our ability to notice others. If I'm just so lost in my own issues and like that, just me, how do I even notice my spouse has some needs, feeling tired, my child is not feeling safe, my student, my co-workers, we would not be able to. So excessive self-focus kills our empathy, let alone compassion. Of course, compassion actually, when we focus on ourselves, our world shrinks. Just filling with me. Even the small, he says that the small difficulties loom large in that. Imagine that we are evolved to feel safer with it, more people around. That with one person in the jungle, could be quite scary because we can't protect ourselves that well. If there are 2, 3, 4, 5 people, we can protect ourselves better, right? That's how you evolve. That's why there's something called the social baseline. That there's something. It's the basic kind of tendency in us to feel safer when we are with others, where there is a certain degree of trust. Of course, that you can be with others that who is trying to hurt you, that you would not feel safe. In a child in an abusive home, that home will be anything but safe with, other people who are abusing, hurting, and like that. But with others, when there is a certain degree of trust, like that, we feel safer, like that. So that's why that when there is a warm connection, that's what I mean, that, the connection, tenderness, that when there's a certain degree of, you feel the warmth from others around you, you feel warm towards others also. In that, you feel safer, like that. That's how it is. So that little problems we may have, at the job, or there's some illness, or there's something uncertainty, those don't loom large. When we are just ourselves, it's psychologically more alone, and like that. That's where that even small issues, they seem much larger, become much heavier, much more distressing, and like that. But when we focus on others, that our world expands when we bring the focus to others, that they are like us, that they have needs just like us, and then then our own problems drift to the periphery. In life there are a lot of ups and downs, but how we feel, to what degree you feel that connection, connected, it makes a whole difference. So when we're talking about the quality of life, the sense of well-being, it's not just how much money you have in your bank account, or how big house you have, how many houses you may have, and like that. Psychological well-being have to do with that, where you feel a certain degree of agency in your life, certain ups and downs that happen, that don't rock you that much, because when you have a sense of connection and others, like that. That's why. So when we talk about the mind training, it is coming from the Buddhist tradition. Mind training, we're talking about the compassion and love for other beings. In the most elevated sense, the Bodhicitta, the resolve to help all beings, and for that purpose to attain full enlightenment. It may seem, quite out there, out of reach and like that. And it's okay. It can be aspirational. What we need to see is the key. What is making that lofty aspiration? We don't need to get all the way there. It can be our aspiration, if you see. But we need to get to see that where we can build that other oriented, where we can strengthen, how we can, strengthen that more and more of a sense of connection, more and more a sense of compassion, more and more whether others' needs and interests are also important, become important for us. How to, that we can do that, right? That any one of us, it's just one step beyond what we are. We can do that now. That we can try, practice, learn. That's what the training is. Mind training means training ourselves to be a little bit more altruistic, more compassionate, more loving, more. And the loving compassion doesn't mean that just others and not self-compassion also. That's part of the compassion also. But not in the sense of like zero-sum game. All that matters is what I have, and that others don't. Not that, but our own interests along with others. Or others' interests along with ours. That's what. So mind training, like what is presented here is to have that level of kind of altruistic heart that really puts others before oneself, exchanging the self with others. That's what, when mind training with the literature in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it's coming from India, of course, but the term Lo-Jong, training the mind, it specifically has to do with the approach or the steps to expanding our heart, to be making a little bit more compassionate, and with the goal to expand in such that where we can equalize ourselves to see our well-being and others' well-being as equally important, have that tenderness, cherishing, for oneself and others similar, but even at some point, at some stage, that others may take the prioritizing. That can happen. It is not unheard of because, of course, we all have that capacity in a narrow sense. Mothers and fathers, you have that personal experience when they are your baby, little baby is there, how precious are they? If they are having difficulty sleeping, with some illness and like that, don't you feel like that, if that discomfort, if I can have this and my child can sleep without that, you would happily exchange that. Don't you feel that? That. So we have that, capacity for exchanging oneself with one's well-being with others, although narrow, for our very close ones. It's about expanding that. Are there ways to expand that, like that? So that's why that we begin with the, the very first verse, setting up that, setting the intention that this practice is about, by seeing all beings as precious. And these are just not naive like that, but grounded in reality that how we derive our well-being from others, all our needs. If we can more and more attune to that, we will feel grateful to others. We will have this tender feeling towards others. Can we make visible in so many ways that how others benefit us, intentionally or unintentionally. The bottom line is that we receive all the resources that we have from others. Clothes we are wearing, even the air that we are breathing, that receiving from trees, oxygen, and like that. Mother Earth is giving us the clean water and so forth and so on. But our education, our food, like all the emotional comfort. So that's what's important. And if this kind of seeing the value of others is not easy if we come with that mindset, I'm the great. with that arrogance, with that self-centeredness, we don't see the contribution of others because everything is made, self-made. It's because of me. That's why humility, the second verse focus on humility. That humility, not like, of the kind of eroding self-worth, not like that. Humility, there is the cognitive humility, epistemic humility, the humility that comes it comes from a respect for others. The seeing that, what I'd receive, like that if somebody who is very kind to your mentor or someone in front of that, you go like that, with your head up, or you naturally are more, your even bodily gesture is more humble. Somebody who has been so kind to you, so helpful, don't bow, don't feel, in their presence that they are important. Humility is very, very important, like that. If we were to really see that how important are others for us, the more and more we can see. But these are easier said than done, so that's why that we need the third verse. We focus on the third one today. That is, whenever I feel, where is that? In my every action, I will watch my mind. And the moment destructive emotions arise, I will confront them strongly and avert them, since they will hurt both me and others. You have to memorize these things, If you really want to practice, you have to memorize these things. Yes, until it becomes your second nature. If you live this, breathe this, then you don't need to have the kind of lines. But having these verses by heart, you will have access to this, not only when you have a piece of paper in front of you, but, that's why these are kind of short, and they really capture that what you really want to cultivate, that whenever, in my every action, I will watch my mind. Our behavior, our reactions, that's what, in the immediate sense, they create a greater sense of comfort and rapport with the other, trust, or it destroys that. If my speech is very venomous, very cutting, very, nasty, cruel, and like that, do you think that kind of, for me, in my speech, cutting, nasty, abusive, harsh, would that create a nice relationship with others? Would it foster trust and warm feeling? Or that will erode a sense of trust, create more of a suspicion and distress, and So that's why that we have to, in the beginning, we need to watch our actions, our behavior. How am I treating the people around me? how am I using, responding with my speech, bodily action, body gesture, and like that. What are my reactions, behavioral reactions, and like that? Because the emotions also show up in your faces, yes, but more of the, they are a little subtler. The overt actions that, these emotions that spill over in our strong actions, they are more visible, more, when it comes to people around us, that's what can cause problem, erode our own nice relationship with others and like that. So that's why we have to watch in our behavior. How am I, acting? Certain decisions that we may be making, in those we need to check what is my motivation underlying. Observe my mind. What is, what kind of impulses I have is leading me to want to say or do or reach or like that. And if those impulses, those emotions are risky, that are, if we notice those, the destructive emotions, like that, if the irritations, like the jealousy and like that, then it's important to find a way to avert them, to at least mitigate, diminish its force. Otherwise it will come in our actions and ruin our lives, and others. So that's what it means, it basically has to do with what they called, psychology today also, that cognitive control and impulse control. Have you heard about impulse control? Yes? Many of you are psychologists here, have taken psychology courses, or we live in the scientific era, so it's all over. If you listen to programs like NPR and like that, there are all those beautiful, wonderful programs that they bring, that talk about this a lot, like that. And you can't really avoid it. I mean, the movies also have that, and many of the, programs tell kind of for children, like this Sesame Street, these programs are actually, they are creating to teach children certain skills, the emotion regulations and like that, like Cookie Monster. Yeah, have you seen that? I haven't actually. I just read, like that. So, to be honest, I haven't seen that, but I have read. The designers of this episode, I read this in Daniel Goleman explains this, and there is a book called Focus, the Hidden Driver of Excellence. Focus, the hidden driver of excellence. In that he talks about how there are three kinds of focuses. Focus, inner focus, other focus, and outer focus. Focus has to do with our attention, where it's going. Where our attention is. If my attention is here, that I see this is, I become aware of that. If my attention is somewhere here, not here, I'm not aware of this. Inner attention has to do with, being attuned to my inner changes, my attitudes, emotions, sensations, feelings, like that. That is important for me to regulate my emotions. If I'm not aware of that, how am I going to manage them? Right? Other focus has to do with if I have to, manage my relationship with others, my interaction with others, like that. If I'm clueless about what my spouse or my student or my coworker's needs are or feeling at a moment like that, I would not be able to appropriately respond and interact. It will not be helpful, that. So other focus, the empathy, that bringing focus to others' needs, others' feelings, other situations, that helps us to regulate our interpersonal interactions, relations. Outer focus has to do with bringing a broader systems thinking, that any given situation, when you, instead of seeing just narrowly what it is, to take from the broader perspective, from the cause and effects and the distant cause, the proximate cause and like that, that's where that you can understand a situation from a much broader perspective so that you can address that in a more meaningful way. Otherwise, if it's from the narrow, just surface kind of value that you see, if you just don't see it from the broader perspective, then that's how it would be very narrow, view and narrow perspective, and then those decisions that come with may not be, skillful, helpful, like the other folks. So anyway, these three focuses have to do with the mind training, training to be more aware so that we can manage, more aware of others' needs and so forth. That's where we can have the better, interpersonal relationship, aware of the greater, from the broader perspective, so that our decisions are meaningful. That with what decision we make. In that, he's talking about this inner focus, and related to that is impulse control. And this cookie jar that he is talking about is that the designer of this Sesame Street, for this episode, they brought the psychologists from Stanford to help them, design a kind of show for children, literature children, to teach, through this show, impulse control. Impulse control. Have you heard about this test called marshmallow study? Marshmallow studies, yeah, many of you have heard. It was done at Stanford, marshmallow study. It's kind of strange that, so I did not grow up eating marshmallows. I still, I had, maybe a couple of times, but I don't. And, but after coming to America in my 30s, but I hear that marshmallow for children is really, very kind of inviting, right? So the Stanford studies they're done with the 4-year-old children, giving them one marshmallow, and the researcher in the room tells the child, you can wait until I come back. I need to step out until I come back. If you wait, not eat this, then you will get 2. If you eat before I come back, then that's all you get. Of course, a child would want 2 because it's very yummy, right? But the impulse, this is also so yummy that you want to eat it immediately. So, marshmallow study is designed to test our impulse control, how well we can control our impulse. And these children, you can see, some of them just immediately, swallow this. Others just put it, and then coming up with some distractions, that imagining or the singing and like that to kind of distract their attention from this marshmallow that is kind of, pulling them to it. Anyway, the different ways that the people have different capacities to resist that temptation, resist those, to control those impulses. And the study, showed that children who had a greater control over those impulses, who waited longer. I think the longest, the psychologists step out and did for 18 minutes. Some waited full 18 minutes. Some 15 minutes, some just 5 seconds. But anyway, what they found is that the greater the self-control, these children, when they are 17 years, they're doing the SAT test and like that, they did much better than those poor with self-control. Like impulse control. Impulse control is associated with our success and well-being. There are many other studies, huge studies done in New Zealand. Dunedin study is called. That there it shows that early life self-control is correlated with adult happiness and flourishing, financial well-being, relationship, better relationship, health, physical, emotional health, criminology, there are less criminal kind of problems and like that, less behavioral addiction and like that, impulse control, that is a huge. So they were designing so that the Cookie Monster has to do with, like that. If you have all the cookies that, if you can either, I don't know actually, I haven't seen this. So what is the Cookie Monster tells that? What does that have to do? It's basically asking you to wait, right? So you can have all the cookies later. It's designed to teach that. So with in the scientific, what I was getting at was that you live in a culture where these scientific insights, they make their way through the stories, through the movies, through the television shows, all over, like the. So the thing is that the impulse control is something that one way or another you probably are familiar. But the thing that I wanted to say here is that why we need to learn to notice those impulses and be able to manage, regulate. Because if we don't notice, not be aware, and then even if it's aware, just go with it, then the certain emotions, while it may have been very helpful in the early life on this planet, in the simple life forms and like that, these days, just going with those impulses can be quite detrimental for our own lives. Anger, like that. Is a major issue with fear, the sadness, and all those things. Nothing wrong in having them, but if we don't manage them, and if they get out of proportion, that's where a simple irritation can end up into road rage, killing each other and like that. In America, road rage, I've never heard before, that in America you hear this, road rage. I know that it probably is not that it doesn't exist elsewhere, but it's probably more in America, road rage. Where else would you hear that somebody was... First of all, there are many cars, and then we are so busy, so rushed, so like that. So our short-tempered, like that when they are rushed and like that, like that. And then there are plenty of guns also floating, like that. And then if somebody cuts you in front of you and then you feel irritated, you honk and you chase, and the other person notices that, they get angry also, and then you get into that rage, and then you have gun, you may even kill each other. That's what happened in Atlanta several years ago. Somebody maybe just cut in front of and then the person was really angry and then kept chasing, and then person got to his house. and then this guy was still chasing, and that right into his driveway. And then the person who was being chased had the gun, and then took and then shot him. Standing ground. This is a beautiful word, apparently. It's an awful word, in some way. That in this context, like they just to take the word and then kill, just. But anyway, you see that how a simple irritation, if we can't manage, and these are extreme cases I'm talking about. Unfortunately, this kind of little spark, emotional spark, ending up into this, our actions, is so easy, so prevalent in our lives. How many times we get into arguments? How many relationships are destroyed? In America, I hear that the 50% of marriages end in divorce within 6 months. Is that true? Have you heard about that? I heard about the 6 months. Maybe it is not true, but it's a very high rate. But when you are tying the knot, we're saying that until the death us apart, in illness or health. Beautiful feeling. There's a total commitment there to be there for each other. How soon that despair disappears? What is even like that? If you watch these movies, crime, the unsolved crimes and all these kind of. How many people, like the spouse is killing other spouses, or all kinds of issues, like that. Extreme cases I'm using, but not that much. Just how much of the relationships get ruined by us, unable to regulate our emotions. That's why it's very, the first, when we think about the mindfulness in the Buddhist teachings, like this. Atisha, one of the 11th century master from India, to visit Tibet and spend 17 years there. He died there. He wrote a text in which he said that Denda Sheshin Bayo pe Ombokonam Kundutans. Nyensen Kundu Yana Rangikila Tabrachas. He says that with mindfulness, monitoring awareness, and heedfulness, examine your mind again and again. Examine your, feelings, the emotions, again and again, in day and night. Why? Why is that? Because so that we can regulate our emotions, thereby regulate our behavior, thereby our relationships, thereby, if we can engage in healthy ways, in our speech, in our actions, in our decisions, like that, of course, we will create a more harmonious environment around us where we enjoy, others feel better. That's a secret for our happiness, to train our mind. So, the steps are many, but in that initial step, how do we go about to regulating our behavior by regulating our emotions? This is where that first thing, as we did earlier, first thing is that we need to First of all, like in regulating our behavior, what is unhealthy, what is healthy. Healthy, unhealthy, not in the sense what feels good or bad. What is wholesome, what is constructive, what is destructive, what contributes to well-being in us and for others, what ruins the well-being for me and others, what kind of behavior, what kind of action, what kind of attitudes, what kind of behavior, that we need to have a sense of that, that not in an absolute kind of black and white sense, this is good, this is evil, not like in that sense, but, aware that this kind of my behavior, it's, causing hurt to others. It, causes a problem for others. And this kind of behavior in turn then ruins my own relationship with this person and like that. We need to be aware of, heedfulness comes from this awareness that what is beneficial and what is harmful, not beneficial. That we need to have that appreciation about the actions, like that. It's not like that, not every behavior that we do is equal to any other behavior, like that. If I'm lying, in order to get my own, benefits, to cheating on others, like that. That is not healthy. Like if I'm abusing others in harsh words and like that, or causing harm to others, that's not wholesome. That it actually, there's not only in the short term it may be you may have some gain, but that you are creating a situation where you erode that trust from others, and so therefore that you yourself suffer as well. So we need to have an appreciation of interacting, using our speech, our decisions, our action in a certain way that contributes to well-being is what I want to adopt. That cause harm, I want to move away from, mitigate, reduce, overcome that. That basic kind of, awareness, appreciation is what the heedfulness is. It leads to a sense of cautiousness. It brings, us, makes us more cautious in terms of our own behavior, attitudes, and like that. So it would be like if you have high blood pressure, like, I don't know, diabetes, let's say diabetes. If you have diabetes, like advanced level diabetes and like that, having a kind of appreciation that what kind of food is conducive for my health, what kind of food I should avoid, for my well-being. That awareness is important. That's where the heedfulness comes. So that if I am aware of what kind of food is not conducive for my health, if I am diabetic in a certain level of sugar, it's not healthy for me, and staying away from certain level is good for me, healthy for me. That appreciation that I have, then I will be more careful with what goes in my mouth. That, of course, I have to be mindful in the sense that I need to, not just learn and then forget as soon as I go to a party, but I need to be able to maintain that awareness, retain that, what is healthy, what is not healthy. That is mindfulness in that sense, that monitoring awareness to yes, you may remember, yes, this kind of sweets, it's too much, that it's not good for me, that I should avoid. You may even remember. But then your impulse is there when you see around it, even kind of peripherally, and then your hand is going there, like that. If you don't monitor, if you don't notice, then you might as well have reached and it may have got into your mouth. And then, so that vigilance, mindfulness, the monitoring part. These are, in some ways it may seem, like just what you're talking about, just like the minute like this. But this is precisely what the mind training, the masters, the practitioners of thousands of practitioners for 2,500 years at least, that this is where that they have, the meticulously observing and the different mental states. And today neuroscientists are doing that, that understanding in the neural circuits, that where the attention part goes and like that, understanding this. We don't need to kind of become philosophers or the psychologists in that sense too, but we need to learn the way to, notice our impulses a little bit better. That we need to learn to, when we notice, then, how to disengage from them. And that's why the meditation begins. I think I mentioned, a couple of weeks ago, the beginning of meditation, one of the great masters, Losang, he says that gateway to meditation is examining our own inner domain. That's why we begin with bringing attention to our sensations, what we feel, and what else are we experiencing, like that. That's inner focus, that. And there then we learn that how to, if we feel quite agitated, how to calm that. There are different strategies, that in the CBCT, like for example, this cognitively based compassion training that we go through the different modules, different steps. It's all, grounded in this ancient kind of time-tested tradition, like that. It provides that, and then that it has kind of parallels with emerging insights in the psychology, the neuroscience and others. So there is a benefit of learning for us to, getting better at being attuned to our inner domain, inner changes through our emotions, like the sensations and like that, and learning to, when we need to, how do we not let those sparks become forest fires? How can we let those impulses calm? One of the steps is to bring our attention somewhere that makes you feel calmer, and that's why that earlier when we began, if noticing if we felt tensions or the feeling anxious and like that, just bringing attention to the breath, taking that full in breath, letting go. Or you can bring the attention to some other place, something that for you is associated with a feeling of safety, feeling of joy, feeling of comfort. You just bring your attention, either sensory things, if you like the colors, bring in the colors, the attention to some colors and like that, or recalling certain moments when certain people, certain places, certain situations where you felt comforted, and just bringing your attention there. These are easy steps first. There are other steps we have to apply, but this is when it says that I will confront them strongly and avert them. Immediately. Immediately stopping is not like suppressing, But immediate averting is not giving fuel to it if you are feeling irritated. It's by bringing attention somewhere else can kind of calm that. So anyway, this is one of the steps. We will continue with other stanzas in the future. But why don't we conclude with the few chanting at the end with mantra recitation, Om Mani Padme Hum. This is the mantra of compassion, basically as a way to, it can be like a self-talk, that can be as a affirmation, that reinforcement of our own deep commitment to integrate the good heart, like compassion and wisdom, understanding, in order to transform our body, speech and mind. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om, our body, speech and mind. Mani, the jewel, the good heart, compassion. Padma, the lotus, wisdom, this understand by the confusions and like that. Hum, the integration. So we can recite this for a few moments. We begin with setting the intention, we can reinforce at the end, and then dedicate our merits. So let's recite for a few of these mantras. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Please take a moment to dedicate any goodness that may have unfolded this evening for us, being together, reflecting on these mind training steps, like that. Let's dedicate these positive forces towards greater good, for peace, healing, harmony and happiness for all beings. Let's dedicate these positive forces for love, compassion to grow in us, whatever level we have, for the further growth, but also for these values to flourish in our communities, in our society. Let's conclude by dedicating any goodness that come from our practice for long life and good health of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is the source of inspiration for love, nonviolence, compassion for so many people. But also other great beings, whether they come from various religious traditions or just without any particular religious affiliation, but who are the source of peace, for inspiration, for peace, harmony, understanding. May they live long and have good health. And may their altruistic aspiration be realized soon. Have a good evening.